Imagine you're a soldier in ancient times. You look up and the sky is full of arrows. Not a few, a cloud. Most armies would panic. Men would scatter, turn their backs, and die running. But the Romans did something different. They turned themselves into a moving tank. Shields locked above, shields locked in front and on the sides, every gap sealed. The formation looked like a big, slow, armored animal crawling across the battlefield. The Romans called it the Testudo, the tortoise. In this video, we're going to break down how that tortoise actually worked, why it was so effective, when it failed, and what it tells us about how Rome fought and won. Casual, simple, and step by step. By the end, you'll understand the Testudo like a Roman centurion drilling his men in camp.
The Testudo wasn't invented because some general wanted to look cool in a mosaic. It existed because the Romans had a serious problem: missiles. As Rome grew, it fought all kinds of enemies: Gauls who threw javelins, Greeks with slingers, Eastern armies who loved archers, and defenders on fortress walls dropping rocks and burning stuff. Heavy infantry is great in close combat, but if you're getting shredded by arrows before you ever reach the enemy, your fancy armor doesn't mean much. Roman commanders hated wasting men. Their strength was a professional army they could reuse, not heroic one-time charges that burned through soldiers. So they needed a way to move their infantry through deadly kill zones without getting massacred. That's the problem the Testudo solved. How do we walk through a storm of arrows and rocks and arrive in one piece, ready to fight?
To understand the Testudo, you have to understand the scutum, the Roman shield. It wasn't a small, round shield like in some other cultures. It was big, rectangular, slightly curved, and almost as tall as a man's torso. It was designed for two things: to cover a lot of the body and to overlap neatly with the shield next to it. When a Roman soldier stood shoulder to shoulder with his comrades, their shields could form a continuous wall, not just isolated plates. That design is what makes the Testudo possible. Without the scutum, there is no tortoise. Now let's put those shields into formation. In the front rank, soldiers held their shields straight forward, edges touching and slightly overlapping. Anyone looking at them head-on would see basically one big flat wall of wood and metal. On the sides, the men turned their shields outward, sealing the flanks of the formation so nobody could just shoot in from the left or right. In the middle and rear, soldiers lifted their shields over their heads, tilting and overlapping them to create a roof. From above, it would look like a rectangle of shield faces, no gaps big enough for arrows to slip through easily. All of this only worked if 1. Every soldier knew his exact position. 2. Every shield overlapped correctly. 3. Everyone moved at the same pace. That's why the Testudo is really a story about discipline. The formation is only as strong as the sloppiest soldier in the block. Forming a Testudo wasn't something soldiers did on the fly. It came from endless drilling in camp. Recruits practiced raising shields to the correct height, standing so close their shoulders almost touched, locking shields together without leaving gaps, marching in step while half blind inside the pack. Remember, each soldier is carrying armor, weapons, and a heavy shield. Inside the Testudo, they're also pressed in and often holding the shield overhead or braced at an awkward angle. It's physically brutal. Arms burn, backs ache, and you're breathing other people's sweat. On top of that, you're under fire. You can hear arrows slamming into the wood above you, stones bouncing off, maybe splinters breaking off the front shields. The only reason it doesn't fall apart is because of pure drill and trust. If one guy panics and drops his shield, there's your gap. If one rank speeds up or slows down too much, the rectangle stretches and twists. So when we talk about the Testudo, We're really talking about an army that could act like a machine. Let's walk through what it felt like to move in Testudo. The front rank is basically driving the formation. They can see the ground ahead, pick the path, and call small adjustments. Everyone behind them is mostly staring at backs and shields. The pace is slow and deliberate. Short, careful steps. No running, no sudden lunges. If the front rank steps in a hole or trips over debris, everyone behind them stacks up. Above them, arrows and stones hit constantly. From inside, you'd hear a steady drum of impacts. Some arrows might stick into the shields, some might crack the wood, but as long as the shield wall and roof hold, most of that deadly energy doesn't reach flesh. Psychologically, this is huge. As an individual, you'd be terrified crossing open ground under missile fire. In Testudo, you feel part of something bigger, and that reduces panic. The formation protects your body, but it also protects your nerves. The Testudo was at its absolute best in siege warfare. Imagine advancing towards city walls. Defenders are above you with bows and slings, javelins and spears, heavy rocks and chunks of masonry, maybe even burning materials. If you walk up in a loose line, you're dead before you touch the gate. In Testudo, you can grind your way forward. Soldiers can reach the gate to place a battering ram, get close enough to set ladders, move engineers and tools to the base of the walls. The Testudo doesn't win the siege by itself, but it makes all the other siege techniques possible. That's a huge difference to a commander planning a long campaign. In open field battles, the Testudo had a more limited but still important role. If the enemy had strong missile troops or a position that forced the Romans to cross a dangerous gap, commanders could order the legions to advance in Testudo to reduce casualties. Once they closed the distance and got out of the main missile zone, the formation could be broken on command. Then the army would spread into more flexible lines or manipular formations for close combat. The Testudo was like a shielded travel mode used to get from point A to point B across deadly ground. It was not how they spent the whole battle. You don't fight agile enemies or react to fast cavalry maneuvers while stuck in a big rectangular turtle. If you do, you get outflanked and destroyed. So smart Roman officers treated the Testudo like a very specialized tool, not a one-size-fits-all solution. The Testudo looks invincible in pictures, but it had real flaws. First problem, speed. It's slow. If an enemy can force you to stay in Testudo while they dance around you or threaten your flanks, you're in trouble. Second problem, fatigue. Holding a shield up for a long time, especially overhead, is exhausting. Over time, shields sag, grip strength fails, and small openings appear. A smart enemy would try to drag out the missile phase just to tire out the legionaries inside. Third problem, flanks and rear. The Testudo protects great from the front and above, but if cavalry or light infantry manage to hit from odd angles, it's harder for the formation to pivot or open up quickly. Because of these weaknesses, enemies experimented with heavier projectiles, fire and burning materials, and attacking when the ground was broken or steep. And because Romans aren't stupid, they responded by using the Testudo only where it made sense, combining it with skirmishers, cavalry, and faster-moving units. Ancient sources and later historians mention the Testudo more often in siege or demonstration contexts, but it clearly fits what Roman armies needed across many campaigns. Against fortified Gaulish strongholds, against eastern cities, against enemies who relied heavily on missiles, a formation like this would naturally appear. Even if not every source uses the word Testudo, the logic of Roman tactics points directly at it. Over time, the Testudo took on a life of its own in storytelling. Writers and later artists loved the image, a tight, perfect block of soldiers, armored like a tortoise. That doesn't mean it showed up everywhere in every battle, but it does mean it represented what Rome valued: order under pressure. When you zoom out, the Testudo is basically Rome in miniature. It's not flashy, it's practical and disciplined. It sacrifices individual freedom for group survival. No single hero makes the Testudo work. It's all about the group. Every soldier doing a simple, clear job perfectly, at the right time, in the right place. That mindset is what allowed Roman armies to beat forces that, on paper, looked more impressive or more heroic. The Testudo says, we don't win because we're brave alone. We win because we're organized together. If you like this kind of deep but casual breakdown of ancient tactics, this Testudo story is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle of how old armies really fought, suffered, and survived.